Okay, I want to welcome Edie Darling, the author of The Time Is Now. So I'm just going to ask you before you go into what the book's about
Yes.
or what you're doing now.
Yes.
First of all, I'm really intrigued
Yes.
that you are a police officer. So can we start there and then you can kind of tell your story for us?
Yes. Well, my story of going into law enforcement, I say, was a happen chance, but it was more so a God chance. I grew up in Southside St. Petersburg, and law enforcement and community were not friends. So an incident took place where my two brothers got robbed outside of our home. And they came running in the house. Now, my recollection is that they came in the house cursing, and we didn't curse in our house. And so my mother ran over to them and said, "What is going on?" And they said, "Mom, we just got robbed." And my mother said, "We have to call the police." In my mind, everything that in my community, why you don't call the police, and my mother telling the stories of when she grew up and having lived through the 60s and seeing police brutality and so many other things, I simply said these words, "No!" And my mother said, "We're going to have to call." So at the time, Chief Daryl Stevens had implemented a community policing program. And when this officer came in, he didn't look like me. He didn't look like any of my family members. He was a white male, Caucasian, walked in and started treating my family with the utmost respect from the time he entered the door. My mother then, in turn, brought him over to our dinner table. He sat down. And for those that know, anybody just can't sit at your dinner table. And then my recollection is my mother gave him something to drink, and he drank out of our cup. And as he began to interview my brothers, interview my mom, and I'm watching all of this unfold before my very eyes, and I am in awe. And so he got ready to leave. And as he got ready to leave, he told my family, "Listen, we might not be able to find out who did this." But as he went to walk out the door, he shook everybody's hand. And when he shook my hand, may I shake your hand? When he shook my hand, at that moment, I felt a transference of power, like he had given me the torch, like he passed the torch to me.
Wow.
And when he walked out the door, I remember this like it was yesterday, and my mother remembers it like it was yesterday. I looked up at my mother and I said, "Mommy." She said, "Yes, baby. I know what I want to be when I grow up." She said, "What's that, baby?" "A police officer." She said, No, baby, you want to be a nurse." And I said, "No, Mom, I want to be a police officer." So I started my journey in law enforcement in 1994.
Okay, I have another question for you.
Yes.
So I know we're kind of going at this in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's December that you have an appointment somewhere.
Well, I'm hoping to get an appointment somewhere.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So, having been in law enforcement, and God called me into ministry early on. I say he called me in 1998, but I wasn't licensed and ordained until later. So in that course of time, I've been the senior chaplain in the Department of Detention and Corrections and done multifaceted things in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I stepped down, the Lord told me to step down from being the senior chaplain because he said, "The platform that I'm getting ready to take you on, you have to come outside the four walls of this jail."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay, Lord." And it was a step of faith because when you're looking at potentially taking a decrease in pay, and at the time my daughter was pregnant and so many other things, dynamics that was going on in my family, and I had to say, "Okay, Lord, I trust you totally and completely." So then all of a sudden I was presented with being an international ambassador at large, taking a message to the world of peace. And so I announced on September the 1st, 2019, that I was seeking to be nominated to become an ambassador at large. I am an ambassador of peace. I walk in the foot of peace. And so I'm asking the president to do something that does not exist and to appoint me to something that I know God has called me to. And so I am believing that before the close of this year, I am going to get that phone call from the president saying, "Who is this Edie Darling that we are getting all these letters from their community saying, this is our ambassador of peace. And I know that she will do and bring peace, not only to our nation, but nations abroad. So I am believing that, Deborah.
That's awesome. So I really want you to pick up her book, and you'll be able to find the rest of the story. And there's actually a workbook attached to it where you can go actually on Amazon. There's other places, but you can Google her name is Edie Darling, EDIEDARLING, and you'll have to pick up on the rest of the story. She's amazing. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.